No, not. That's the way I am. I do the very best job I can every day. I don't ever try to worry about things out of my control. My focus has been on trying to, help this team be the very best they can be and help the individuals be the best they can be. I said it late in the year. Part of that has been trying to build, obviously, especially over the course of the last 2 months, making sure that we're building towards the future. So my focus has been on that.
So the news that you are back, what is your reaction to that?
I'm certainly glad to still be the head coach of the Detroit Red Wings. It's a job I love. I'm excited about trying to keep moving this thing in the direction to put this franchise where you guys, us, the fan base, everybody wants it. So I'm excited at the opportunity to continue that job.
Jeff, Anthony said just a little short while ago, you and he have talked about your decision to, maybe publicly and such. Can you talk about specifically how you've grown in your relationship with him and kind of figuring out how I mean, he's a heck of a talent, but how do you light a fire on there and what's the best?
Well, I think anybody that's been a parent, if any of you have been coaches, but if not, even just being a parent, everybody's a little different. Every person's a little different. There's multiple ways to get messages across. You can yell at people. You can, in my case, take their ice time away. You can show them video. You can pat them on the back, say you're doing a good job. There's multitudes of ways. My job is to get the very most out of each individual player that I can, and part of that job is to figure out the right buttons to push. And sometimes those buttons change. I've had Anthony a long time. It's not like this is just a new growth process, but those buttons can change as people mature. I know with Anthony, one of the things that that him and I. I think I've told you guys this. We had a bit of a heart-to-heart going into the New Jersey game, I think in January, and where I was trying to make sure with Anthony he understands what it's going to take for him to be the very best player he can be. Through that process, we've shown him comparable clips when he's doing it right and clips when he's not doing it right. So we're one thing he said to me was, "Can you show me? Can you show me what you're talking about?" And I said, "Absolutely." And so we've tried to do that on a regular basis. I think one of the biggest important things on getting the best out of people is finding ways to connect with them. I think if the player gets to a realization where they understand what you're trying to do is get the very best out of them, that you're not picking on them, that you're not whatever, when they understand that, then there can be real growth.
You change your Sorry.
I'll evaluate. We're evaluating everything, in terms of how can we. We talked to the team today. We all got to be a little bit better. So I'll certainly evaluate our staff and see if there's anything that makes sense for us.
Anthony said that this summer he's going to take some boxing lessons to tap more, not because he can defend himself pretty much on the ice, but he said that he might be a little too passive, that you want him to be more aggressive. Is that why? That he needs to be more aggressive out on the ice and show some aggression instead of being passive?
Well, I think so. I think Anthony still has to learn. There's more inside, and there's more there. And sometimes my 12-year-old, he thinks he works hard, and then I say to him, well, no, you got to work harder. But he doesn't know what that's like, and until you know what that's like, until you've been pushed past that brink, it's hard to understand that there's more in you. And in Anthony's case, boxing was something him and I talked about, more from a sense of, I think we actually talked about trying to find a psycho boxing teacher who beats you to a pulp where you don't think you can. I don't mean physically, but just in terms of the training, to where you don't think you have any more left, and he demands 45 more minutes out of you, and then you find a way to do that. And we got 4 months here in the summer to try to show that there's a bigger threshold than what he's ever seen before in terms of enduring that type of pain and endurance and stuff like that. I also think boxing does two things for me. Greg Cronin, the assistant of the Islanders, actually told me about it a long time ago. It teaches people how to handle fear. I don't think, not fear of getting hit necessarily, just fear in life and overcoming that, and not having any fear at all. But I also think it brings out aggression. And I think, with Anthony, I just want him to continue to see that there's more. There's more there in terms of pushing himself beyond his comfort level. And I'm hoping that summer training can push himself beyond his comfort level. If that happens and he comes in, as I told Anthony, if he comes back and has the same year next year that he had this year, we're not good enough. We need these guys to make some significant steps. And there's teams in this league that last year were out, that this year are in. And if you look at it, certain individual players made real significant steps. That's what we need from guys that have that biggest area of growth.
You encourage Double A to do this. Some of the same things you're saying about Manfred, you could also apply to Double A. Seems like the message.
Did you guys talk?
Seems like the message hasn't gotten through like you had hoped the last couple of years to him. Seems like he keeps needing reminders. How do you get that message through? And is it just a matter of time, or?
Well, as I said too, I think everybody's a little bit different, and certainly while those two are friends, they're different, and there's different buttons to push. My message to Double A was you have to. As a coach, you have to know exactly what you're getting every shift, and the growth in him is going to be to learn to work and compete every shift. If I'm guessing whether or not he's going to work and compete, it's hard to keep putting him out there because I don't know what I'm getting. So I think that consistency level and work ethic and compete is going to be critical for Double A.
Dylan has talked a lot about how much last year's Worlds helped him as far as establishing trust for you. Can you talk about the potential here with both of you going back for?
Well, I think Dylan's going to be a big part of our team, and I think just building that time together where he's that, last year was probably the first year where Dylan got to really be a go-to guy with me. Maybe a little bit that year in the Calder Cup when he came out of Michigan, but last year was certainly the first time. I mean, a real go-to guy up the middle, and I think we can just build upon that. I think he's been in that moment lots this year. He's been a go-to guy for us lots, and I think hopefully this can continue to build upon that relationship.
Rebuild guys said that they used the word that they felt like you matured as a coach, I guess, for the last couple of years. And I don't know if that's something you can self-analyze, but do you feel, or where did you see change in maybe your maturation?
Well, first of all, I hope I've gotten better. I mean, the one thing that I've tried to do my whole life is self-reflect, look in the mirror, and say you got to be better. And how do you get better? And when you're not, I think this is a league where I've always encouraged a free communication in terms of what others think, and so I know the areas that I look to improve upon. I also would say that I think in any job, I think the more time you're in it, probably the more comfortable you are in it, and certainly I would say it's easier to be good at it this year, I guess, than in year one. I think it's easier just because of experience.
Rebuilds in sports are interesting because you're the guy that says whether or not you're coming back. Just comes in and tells us, okay, 1 or 2 years away from playoff contention. He's focused on the long-term future, and then you come in and say, well, if we get a certain group of guys that take a step, then we can make the playoffs. So how do you as a coach succeed so that you're here again talking to us at this point?
Well, I think if you're a group of coaches and players, there's two different things at play. I think one is long-term vision, and I think going back, as I said before, going back three years now, Ken has taken an approach, whether he said it the way all of you have wanted him to say it or not. He stopped trading for draft picks my first year, or stopped trading for players and trading away draft picks. And in the last 2 years, we've accumulated tons. So I think that action is shown in his long-term vision that we're going to have to rebuild this through the only way you can in the NHL today, and that's through drafting and developing your players. Now, I also think I don't know anybody that goes into a season, whether it's as a coach or player, that doesn't want to improve upon and be the very best they can be. And there isn't a coach or player that's going to come into September and say they don't think they have a chance at the playoffs. I think there'll be 31 teams that think they do, and they're not wrong. And why aren't they wrong? There's example after example, year after year, of teams that went from being totally out of it to being in it. And did they think that was going to be their timeline? I don't know. I don't believe in timelines per se. I just know this. I know that if we have to do that, if we found a way to win a number of the close games, we would have been in the mix way longer. And I know that if our certain young players can show the type of growth where they go from being here to here, we'll be a really good hockey team. So does that happen in a year? I don't know. I think Ken, rightly so, is looking at the long-term best interest of this club, and he's going to guide his decisions on, without speaking for him, he'll guide his decisions on making sure there's no shortcuts, and that we're going to be where we want to be as an organization long-term. For me, coach's focus is always more narrow. It's just narrow by the reality of it. So we'll make sure that we do everything we can possible to help our players become the best they can be as we move through the course of the year next year to be the very best team we can.
How about the
Jeff,
decision to keep Tyler Bertuzzi out of the JR playoffs, and then what is the next level?
You know, as I talked about, Elaine asked me this in Columbus, what's best. There's always pluses and minuses to any decision you make, and certainly there was pluses if we would have went and played in GR. But there's also certainly pluses to not. And the plus to not is Tyler Bertuzzi is a hockey player. He's like a rink rat type hockey player. He's smart. He gets pucks. He does all those things. His game is better than maybe his physical attributes right now. Every night he goes against guys that are probably a little bit stronger and a little bit faster than him. Every night. And he finds a way with his mind and his will to make that up and become a positive impact in the game. Just think if he match those guys in those physical attributes. If he's as strong and as fast as a lot of those guys that he's going against, he'll be that much better. He'll be more than a complementary player. He'll be a go-to type player. So I think the positive in this case is at least an extra month of getting after it training-wise, both from my guidance to him was, you got to get bigger, faster, stronger. So find a strength and sprinting coach that can help you do those things. Get a skating coach that's going to help you get that little bit quicker. And if he can do those things, he'll be that much better player next year.
Jeff, you talk a lot about this being a one-goal league where most games are one goals. You went to overtime, and I think almost 25% of your games. You lost a lot of points in 3-on-3. Is that a scheme issue? Is that not enough speed at certain positions?
Well, it's not a speed issue, that's for sure. That's number one. And I might talk about it, but the facts say it, that it is a one-goal league for sure. Is it a scheme issue? We'll look at that. You know, we certainly studied it through the course of the year to say, is there anything schematically we can do? You know, I had probably a head start on a lot of coaches because I had it in the American League a year before others. We had good success there. We had good success my first year, and then the last 2 years we haven't had good success. So why? You know, I've got certain theories on how we can do to be better schematically. Now, the only thing I would say, and this is why 3-on-3 is good, is the less people on the ice, the less coaching matters. That's the reality of it, and that's why I think everybody thinks it's real entertaining. What we've done in hockey is made it, to some degree, maybe less entertaining because of the structure. And 3-on-3 structure to a large degree goes out the window if you want to win. Now, if all you want to do is hold on for a tie and get to the shootout, which you could make an argument that we should try to do, you could probably just defend, because the only real chances every time, what we've found through our analytics is basically you got to give up a chance to get a chance, and if you give up a medium chance, you're usually going to get a big-time chance. And so how do you do that schematically? Boy, that's tough to do. It's tough to find schemes to give up a medium chance, but there's certain things we're looking at.
Coach, sort of changing personnel on the back end. Will this team be spending less time in the zone and getting it out quicker next year, or that's going to
Well, I think that depends on the players that make up the 6 guys on the back end. The impact that those guys have. I'm going to go watch a couple of our young players this week. I'll have a chance to see Chalowski play. I'll have a chance to see Rasmussen play. I'll have a chance to see Hronik play in GR. We had a chance to look at Hickett's here. Making plays under pressure is the premium thing for an NHL defenseman today, and then secondly would be adding offense from the back end. You have to find a way to make plays under pressure. If the guys that make up the 6 guys on the back end can make more plays under pressure, we'll be out of our end quicker.
You talked, when you had this discussion about them, did you get a chance to tell them like what they need to work on?
Yep. Hicks to me is probably two different areas. One is he's a gamer. He's got swagger. He brings confidence to your group. He doesn't fit the mold of an NHL defenseman in terms of his size and skating. He's got to eliminate the big mistakes. Those have cost him in GR too much, and there was times where even maybe it didn't cost him here, they could have. And if those happen, the one game where we Buffalo and he gave up 2 breakaways on the power play. They didn't go in, but if they do, and it's the beginning of the next year, you don't get as many extra chances. So he's got to eliminate those. Those are something we talked about. He's going to have to be real good on the power play. That's something we talked about. And then after the season's over, he's another guy that's got to turn his body into a better asset for him. I watched Torrey Krug grow as a player, and part of the reason he grew as a player is because he got quicker, and he got quicker because he physically turned his body into what I call a pro's body. That's what Joe's got to do. Svech, I think where Svech can separate himself from others in our organization is being real heavy and strong in the puck in the O-zone and making lots of plays in the O-zone. We don't hold on to the puck enough in the O-zone. We don't have enough grind time in the O-zone, and I think he can separate himself by doing that. Now he's got to do it on a consistent basis.
So Jeff, what do you think of the special teams here this season? Still kind of
yeah, not good enough. Both in the end. I think at the beginning of the year they were going all right, and then I said at the beginning of the year we're going to need top 10 specialty teams, and I think if we had top 10 specialty teams we would have been in it for a lot longer. That's the reality of the little differences in the league. They both have to be better. I think we lost our way, and this is my fault on our PK when we had some guys go out and we got scored on too much. We got to make sure we just stick to our principles and be okay getting scored on and staying with those principles. And so it's something we'll look at and make sure that we do everything possible to make that better. On our PP, some of it a little bit is the growth. If there's an area for growth in Dylan Larkin, if there's an area for growth in Andreas Athanasiou, both of them is their output in the power play. Both had significant minutes in the power play, and their output has to be better. That's a huge growth area for both guys to be impact players in this league. It can bring Larks from whatever 62-3, whatever he got to 80. Just by being better in the power play. So that's an area I know he'll work his tail off on. Same with AA. He's going to have to learn how to be a better asset in those areas.
If you talk a little bit about how having that speed up front allowed you to play maybe differently, more aggressive, when you start to get that same kind of skating in the back end, how will that change?
I don't know that it'll change tons because we made a real concerted effort. We did at the beginning of the year, but then certainly after the All-Star break, finding ways. We wanted our D up in the play all year, but I think we worked on it in a manner that allowed us to have more success with it as it went along. So I think all it does is probably make your back end more dangerous. Greeny would beat guys up the ice lots. The more guys you have that can beat people up the ice, the more you can put a team on their heels, and the more they're on their heels, the better off you are. I think Vegas done a pretty good job of that. They don't have, I think of the Schmidt kid, like he really puts you on your heels the whole night by getting up in the play. I don't think it's going to be a change in schematics as much as it's going to be make the schematics more dangerous. Well, it's positive and negative. The negative is we're not in the playoffs, and you know the fact you get to coach the Worlds. One of the reasons is you're one of the coaches not in the playoffs. So that part is what it is. The positive is it's an unreal tournament, and you get to stay in a real competitive environment for another month. And I think it was an unbelievable experience. Certainly not as good as being in the playoffs, but it's second to that. The other positive is it allows for another 6 weeks of transition period between the season being over and me being home full time with my family. And I think both my wife and kids can say they're glad I'm not home full time till June.
Jeff, how formed is that roster? Just like the USA? Have you seen?
It's still a work in progress. Still, Ian. Part of it is there's a real fluidity and trickiness to the World Championship roster. There's teams there's players available now. There's going to be players available after the first round, and deciding who to ask and who to wait and see what other guys do. That's a tricky thing. It's probably unlike anything else that you pick teams for. It's unlike an Olympic or a World Cup or anything like that, because you know who's available. So we'll work through it as we go.
From your own team, is Larkin the only one that's confirmed?
I believe he's the only one that's confirmed. Correct.
He said the next step for him is becoming a winner. Can you come in there and help facilitate that process?
Well, I think anytime you get a chance to put the team on your shoulders and you either win or lose, it can help you. It can really help you either way. If you lose, you learn from it. And if you win, it gives you confidence that you can put the team on your shoulders and win. And he's going to be a big factor in it, And I think that's why I think Larks is a great competitor. He looks at this year and says, I can be a better winner. I think that's great to hear, because what you want is athletes who want it on their shoulders when it matters the most, and he's certainly one of those guys.